Hello, and welcome back to Microsoft Mechanics Live. Today we've got a great show in store with the father of SharePoint, Jeff Teper, and we're also going to see and hear about the latest updates to SharePoint and OneDrive. We're going to give you a tour of all the new capabilities to work on files together and across platforms, new integration between SharePoint and Microsoft Teams, the latest mobile experiences, as well as simpler ways to manage, protect, and control your data. And to do that, please give me a warm welcome for Mr. Jeff Teper, CVP.
Thank you.
On Microsoft 365.
Thanks very much. It's awesome to be back, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeff. So, it's awesome to have you on the show again. I think you had the longest of all the shows last year. We're gonna try to reduce that record a little bit and make it the tightest, most demo-packed show we've ever done.
So give me the evil eye midway through the last demo, and anyway.
Right. So with all the latest innovations that we're seeing really across all the infusion of AI and richer and more capable intranet experiences, what are you guys doing to make things better on the SharePoint and OneDrive fronts?
Yeah, there's a wide spectrum of things, and we'll show them to you pretty quickly. First, we want to focus on end-to-end simplicity in content collaboration between Office and OneDrive. So we were talking about this idea of power and simplicity, and so we're going to show that, and then we're going to show teamwork and engaging intranets is where we're actually going to start.
Very cool. So can you take us on a tour of all the updates? Because it's better to actually see this stuff in action.
Especially
because it's beautiful.
Especially since we're time-bound.
Yes.
So let's start on a few vignettes of the modern SharePoint Web Experience. I'm going to show 5 different portals to show the spectrum of capabilities. All of these out of box, no custom code, with the rich new capabilities and communication sites. This first one is a news site, and you can see a bunch of different layouts for news, from a carousel to an executive corner where we're doing audience targeting and news to different people in the organization. We've got some other different layouts. We can have both team news that rolls up as well as organization news that's published top down. We've integrated Twitter through a Twitter web part we've got here. We've got a countdown. So, pretty focused site around communicating news, and that's just one example.
And these are all kind of like built-in capabilities, not a lot of custom code needed.
Yeah,
for that,
exactly.
Right?
We've dramatically increased the size of the design team over the last couple of years, and it really helped us build these layouts that are, you can have different configurations as I've shown, but they look really polished.
This looks really great here.
Yeah, here's another polished site. This is an executive corner site, and you can see some of the really great features like parallax scrolling as I scroll up here. Posts. You can see the Yammer feed embedded into that. There's a new Yammer experience coming soon to integrate. But the thing I really wanted to show here is the integration with Microsoft Stream. Stream's part of our team now, and we're doing more and more to integrate Stream with Teams, with Yammer, and with SharePoint, so you can build these gorgeous intranets with Stream videos laid out on the page.
Looks really good.
Next one up is more of a knowledge management site where you can have Q&A. In this case, we're using Yammer for that. You can use our people part for expertise, where you can hover and get more information about people right on the page. Things like their LinkedIn profile. Trending resources, we can use AI algorithms to figure out what's going on. So pretty common use case in SharePoint for not just a publishing destination, but an information repository.
Make sure that people can get to content and things for training or other tasks, right.
Perhaps one of the biggest applauses we got in the last year as we introduced new features is this idea of a hub site. Before we had these sort of fixed hierarchies as SharePoint sites and subsites, and we have a more flexible model that we're using on this HR portal where you can see different HR child sites, benefits, giving, and so forth, new hires on the site. And this hub site is rolling up news, you can see it there, and events. That's a new thing coming for hub sites from these child sites that are members of the hub site. And these are not things that you have to create and forever they're locked to a parent. You can move around and rearrange your intranet.
And they kind of take the same branding and look and feel of the hub, right?
Yeah, exactly. A couple other things on this page. We've got a much more attractive looking quick links article part with links that you can show into it. And because this is a self-service employee portal site, we've built a Power App that is rendered inside the page as a web part. So again, that's sort of an HR portal rolling up different sites. And this last one here is a streamlined company portal. We've got news, events in a different layout. Again, you're seeing these authoritative company news, not just team news. The company news will sort of trump in this kind of site. And then we've got a countdown clock, some different layouts in terms of background colors and full bleed and so forth. Some recent sites and more personalized information on this page to make it relevant.
And it's really great because basically anyone can build this. These are all a lot of these are the built-in kind of default web parts that you can add as you start building out these experiences.
Exactly. And to show, I mentioned hub sites last year was the thing that got the biggest applause. The thing yesterday that got the biggest applause is, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, the mega menu. We now have a mega menu on a box in SharePoint for these portals that people used to spend a lot of work making these from scratch. We've now got one. You don't have to do it.
Very cool, very cool. So I know that we've done a lot of work on mobile here. You've got your, I think, your phone ready. What are some of the new experiences that we can do on the phone? Yeah,
when we launched our vision for the next era of SharePoint a couple years ago, we talked about the intranet in your pocket. And as we've had SharePoint Mobile out there for a while, we've gotten different feedback, we've looked at different mobile apps, and instead of adding functionality to the information architecture, we've pared it back. And so you can see we've streamlined the interface here to just 3 things around the bottom row. And it's a search-centered experience, much like we've done with Outlook Mobile. So we call this zero-term query. So before you even type a search, you get answers like quick access, frequent sites, people, recent files, popular searches, featured link. The IT group can publish out these sites. And
it's all personalized. It's all based on what you've been working on, who you work with, all those things.
And then, so I don't, this system knows these are the most frequently used sites. I can go into the strategy site, drill in, and see one of the things that's new is showing the files inside the SharePoint app. You no longer have to deep link out to the OneDrive mobile app. You can see those right in the page. Then we'll go to the News tab where we're, again, elevating up both the company news and the team news right there, and I can sort of scroll through this. I do this all the time in the Office team, SharePoint team. We publish every month updates from the team on different features. I'm sitting on the couch, I read this, and if there's something I'm particularly interested in, I can go ahead and hit save for later, and then when I go to the Me tab, the articles that I've pinned and saved for later are right there.
Which is great, because everything will start scrolling down and down and down the list, and this helps you get back to them really quickly.
Yeah, so great. I navigated the intranet a whole bunch without ever having to type in a single word there.
And it looks great on the phone. So we actually had Lori on just a little bit ago talking about Teams. I know one of my favorite areas, and I think one of your favorite areas, is all the integration that we're doing with Microsoft Teams. Can you share what's new there?
Yeah, you bet. We do a lot of work between our team and the Teams team. And you're starting to see some of that in the announcements we had yesterday. Some of them I did in Lori's session, some of them we kept for my session. Right. And so let's go ahead and take a look at Microsoft Teams. And you can see we're in the strategy and planning team, and we've got a files view. But this doesn't look like the files view we first shipped in Teams. This is actually the shared files control served off of SharePoint into Teams. So all the richness that you are familiar with from SharePoint, metadata, workflow, different views, I can pin documents, thumbnailing, of course, these are thumbnails for the files. And this view is the same exact view that shows up in SharePoint, in OneDrive. We're bringing it to Outlook Web Access here in Microsoft Teams, including all the command capabilities, including the most asked for feature in Microsoft Teams, which is to do sync to OneDrive files on demand straight from Microsoft Teams.
How much better is that? How much easier is that to do? That's awesome.
And of course, this, people will recognize this. This is the same view that sits in the OneDrive and SharePoint app, and it now sits inside Teams. And we're doing a similar thing with lists. People are building these really powerful list-based applications with the column and row formatting and Power Apps and Flow integration. Here's a list with some really exciting formatting. We've got a flow that kicks off a remind me workflow. We've got color coding on status. All that is now built on SharePoint, customized in SharePoint, but served up in the context of Microsoft Teams.
That looks great. And so a list is one of the most asked for, I think, capabilities as well coming into Teams. So very good stuff.
And the next thing I want to show you is we want to help people bring their existing work groups to Microsoft Teams. Of course, you can make a new team, and that makes a new SharePoint site connected to it that you can experience in Teams or in the browser. Here's an existing SharePoint site, and you're seeing an Office 365 we're starting to include this feature called Teamify, where you can connect that team to an Office 365 group, an associated set of resources in Microsoft Teams, and combine the rich content collaboration capability in SharePoint with the communications capability in Teams. So you don't have to just make new destinations, you can upgrade your existing SharePoint sites with these Teams connections.
Totally useful, yep.
And the last area that I thought I'd show in this space of how SharePoint can create very flexible teamwork solutions is some work we're doing in the modern experience in SharePoint for composite apps using part-to-part communications in the new client-side rendered SharePoint framework. So you can see I have a list of retail accounts here with the store name, account manager, location, et cetera. And that's sort of the master, and the detailed parts are for the account manager and the map of the geography of where the store is. So I can go ahead and, this one's in Seattle, let's find one in a different place. We'll click on the one in Illinois, and sure enough, that will update the other parts, and we can see the account manager and the graph. And I'll geek out for a second. This has a feature I've been trying for us to find the resources to do right for the last year and a half, which is a new data type for SharePoint, which is geolocation. So we store the lat-long coordinates, but we translate that to user-friendly addresses, and then we can use that in these kinds of apps.
Very cool. So I know that these are all the kind of the team experiences. We saw all the kind of the org level stuff, but as an individual, what are we doing to make it easier to get work done if I'm working, say, on my own, and then I've got to share that out later?
Great, yeah, let's fire up OneDrive. So yesterday, we had John Friedman, the head of Office Design, come up and talk about how we're using something called the Fluent Design Language to implement visual consistency, because as people are using different tools in Office 365, sometimes merged together like we just showed in Teams, it's important they share a common design language. We take all this power we're adding and make it simpler. And so this is a preview of what this new Fluent-based OneDrive UI looks like. And in addition to the design language, again, we're taking all the power of SharePoint and exposing it through OneDrive. So I can see all the shared libraries that I work with across all these sites. I get recommended files across all these sites right within OneDrive. We get a lot of people who say, to be frank, when do I put things in OneDrive? When do I put things in SharePoint? Do I have to go back and forth? And we want to make it easy for people to get access to all their files with the richest possible view that we have in SharePoint right within OneDrive. They don't have to leave the OneDrive experience. Of course, they can if they want the website with the maps and the parts and the news and so forth.
Yep.
But there's no reason why we can't do all the file management you need right within the file management app.
It's very consistent design and everything as well. It looks great.
Yeah, great. And so next, if I can, I wanted to show some of the integration we're doing with Office for collaboration and AI.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you can see these rich previews right within OneDrive. I'm going to go ahead and select this annual report and hit share on that. And one of the most popular features we've done in the last year is this common sharing UI that goes across platforms in the Microsoft apps. I'm going to show some new settings we've got for that. So I'm going to turn off allow editing. I'm going to block download. And I'm going to set a password on this because maybe I want to do some external sharing, but I want to limit what people can do on that. So I'll go ahead and apply that. And then I'll copy that link. And then to show what a recipient of this might see, I'm going to open up another browser window.
So no cache credentials.
No cache credentials.
Yep.
Hit return. And you see I'm prompted for a password. I'll type the password that I provided for that. And you can see that the download of this is blocked. So I can't actually download the file. I can't copy and paste it. You know, if I hit, there's no copy there. And so it's a great way to allow people to do password protected external sharing with limited access to the document. And it's the kind of controls IT customers need to empower their users to work more naturally outside and inside their organization.
Really, really great stuff. And I know that some of this even accrues to how we're doing some of the security and compliance that we'll show in a bit. But this is really, really good and capable in terms of being able to share your work out in a way that's secure, that meets your security requirements without kind of giving the ability to download or copy paste.
Yeah. So let me show you, that's collaboration. Let's show you an AI feature. We've got this hover card that shows up on various files. And I can, of course, see the details, including who's got access to it. But right here you see in the middle of the screen a new AI capability called Inside Look, where we can see, based on the density of the document, the average reading time, and a summary extracted. So key points are sales have breached previous year's expectations, blah, blah, blah. And so I don't have to actually open the file to get some quick tips about what's in the body of the document.
Yep.
Last thing, we're going to show another collaboration feature that we're doing between the Office team and the OneDrive and SharePoint team. So let me go ahead and click on this campaign. You see how fast that PowerPoint opened in PowerPoint web app.
And we see some action. It looks like activities there on the thumbnails.
Yeah, exactly. Up here in the upper right, you see the collab corner that Alex is editing and comments. But you also see this box here that says, while you're away, changes were made by Alex. And so sure enough, I can go in and click on this and see what Alex has done to the document. And you know, the slides got unread changes. So it tells me you don't have to skim through the whole deck. You can go to specific slides to see which slides have changed.
And it's really great in terms of the extension of version history, for example. You
Yes.
knew who was in the doc, but this will actually expose what was changed.
Yeah. And then lastly, I mentioned, you asked before we got going, one of my favorite features, the one that the team knows I'm using all the time, is comments with app mentions. So say I want to tell you, Alex, this slide's a little busy. In this case, I'm actually going to tell it to Lydia, who's working on the document with me. I inserted a comment. I hit @L. Office 365 knows the people I work with. Lydia is certainly somebody I work with, and I can say, can we make simpler? And then I'll go ahead and hit send. And what's going to happen is, if Lydia didn't have access to this document, it will prompt me to share with her. And then she's going to get a notification that I've mentioned her, and she'll come right back in the document and make the changes she needs. So I don't have to copy links and send mails and take 3 steps.
Right.
And the system could have done all that.
So we
for
know all
me.
the sharing just through that app mention. Very, very cool. So why don't you show us one of my favorite capabilities, the new files on demand.
Yeah, you bet.
On the Mac.
You bet. This was definitely its favorite yesterday. So this is Apple's Mac OS Mojave that just also shipped yesterday, the same time we went to preview with Files on Demand. And you can see we're in dark mode. We support that, being good citizens of what Apple does in the Mac. And this is my OneDrive, and you can see, if you're familiar with Files on Demand, the cloud means those files and folders are in the cloud. I haven't synced them down to my machine. Others with check marks have been synced. And of course, I can go ahead and change that. I can share a file. I can view it online. I can choose to sync and hold these files always on my device, or I can release them to the cloud to be fetched next time I need them, because I might have a lot of content.
And that's one of the great things here, because you might only have, say, a 128 gig or something hard drive, and you might have terabytes of files up in OneDrive, and this allows you to manage that.
And you've teed that up well. So this is my OneDrive, but we've got the Contoso SharePoint site up there with a whole bunch of content. And if we look at the info view on that, we've got over 4 terabytes of content, but we can browse all of that namespace and all the files to get the ones that I actually need, and we're only taking about 48 megabytes on disk. So that's Files on Demand brought seamlessly within the Mac OS Finder experience.
Awesome stuff. So of course, beyond all the end user capabilities, and it's really good to see everything here on the Mac. We're going to get to Windows here now. I want to talk about some of the security and compliance updates, but to do that, we have to actually get our on-premises SharePoint content, our sites, our data into SharePoint Online. So I'm going to try to do this as
Here's the keys to the car. Don't wreck it.
I'm just
Your demo.
I'm just a desktop deployment guy. I don't know anything about SharePoint. So here I'm in an on-prem site. So I've got, you can tell here, and I'm going to do a little zoom into the address bar just so you can see where it's at. It's on Azure, but using a SharePoint server. And here, when I go into the site itself, I can see that I've got, for example, my my content here through a document library. I've got also my list content that's in here as well. And I've even got a web part in this site. So things that we traditionally weren't migrating with the SharePoint migration tool. And I've also got some subsites. You can see drones and games and electronics. So I've got a bit of stuff on this page. I need to make sure in this whole site, I've got to make sure that I can migrate that into SharePoint Online to be able to take advantage of some of the things like the security compliance benefits. So to do that, I'm on a brand new version of the SharePoint migration tool. I'm going to click into the on-premises source. Now in advance of this, I've signed in with my on-prem creds to be able to get this service to talk to my on-prem SharePoint, my SharePoint Online creds as well to be able to move those files up. So I'm going to go ahead and paste in the URL of that site that I was just looking at. And I can click here on the Include All Subsites option. And here you can see all the different modalities that we can actually migrate up into SharePoint Online. So I've got either lists, libraries, pages, and all web parts, or I can do those things a la carte. If I click Next, it's actually going to recommend for me the URL where that's going to find itself once it's migrated. So that's a nice time saver as well. If I click Next there, it's going to take me to the final screen effectively where I can finalize the migration. Then I can start moving my content from my on-premises server, or the servers that are hosted in Azure, if that's where they're at, into SharePoint Online. So let's see what that looks like. So I don't want to do this in front of everybody while paint dries. So we're going to make that a little bit faster here and show the site once it's been migrated. So for that, now I'm in SharePoint Online, and you can tell by the URL, I'm back in the actual online environment. Not only can you tell by the URL, though, because it looks way cooler.
It looks, yeah, we are using 21st century JavaScript there. The previous one, you know.
Yes, exactly. This looks like we've moved into one century newer. So we've got everything there. If I go into some of the other contents on the page, I can see that my list migrated up. So the SharePoint migration tool migrated the list up. How cool is that? And then I can see that even the web part, the code for the web part came up as well. So everything's fully functional here.
We left that page safe.
And yes, and even the drones sub-site came up with the migration. So all that stuff, without doing a bunch of manual work, just used the tool, pointed at that content, and everything went up into SharePoint Online. So now I can actually be protected. But now that I'm protected and online, what does it look like then in terms of some of the updates that we've done from an admin's perspective for security and compliance?
That's a great point. That because you've migrated the data to the cloud, the users in the business get more capabilities. They get better collaboration, they get a simpler experience, they get AI, they get OneDrive files on demand, and they also get the ability to connect that site if they wanted to Teams and get access to all the resources, Planner, Teams, and so forth. But there's also security reasons, because one of the things we hear about, why should I migrate if the security is going to be different in the cloud, and the security is actually going to be better in the cloud. And I'm going to show you just one example of that here.
Okay.
And so this is the Security and Compliance Center for Office 365. And we have a new capability we announced yesterday called classification labels, because it's a lot of work. Say you have tens of thousands of SharePoint sites to go implement policies one by one, and why not bucket these policies into a handful of labels? And so you can see in this case, this company has created 3 labels: general, confidential, and top secret. And I'll go ahead and click those. And those are going to apply to all the apps across Office 365. And so you can see this top secret label has some options. Let's go ahead and take a look in a little more detail at about a couple of them. We're going to go into content marking for one. For example, so that means if I've applied the top secret label, that we want the content to be watermarked and have a header and footer that says it's top secret. That's one type of policy. A very different type of policy we wanted associated with this label is the policies around the site and group. Here we say, if it's top secret, that site is private. No one can share outside that immediate team. External access is not allowed. And if you're on an unmanaged device, access to it's been blocked. And so you think about all those different permutations bundled up in this one label called top secret. And so that's an Office 365 wide concept of a label. Now let's show how you'd apply it to a particular workload like SharePoint. And this is the SharePoint admin UI, and you can see these different sites. And this is what an IT person would do to label sites. I'll show you the end user view in a second. And so we've got this sales compete collateral site and sales, and you'll see down here the sensitivity is general. So if I go to that site, here it is, I can see that site on this unmanaged device. The part of the unmanaged device will be played by the Chrome browser in this movie.
Okay, yes, makes sense.
and we'll go back to Edge where our admin is, which is the managed device in this demo, and we'll go ahead and change the sensitivity to that to top secret. And this will just take a few seconds. You'll see the sensitivity is updating for that site from general to top secret. In just a minute, that will be applied. And there we go. And so the sensitivity of that site is now top secret. So if I go back to this unmanaged device and hit refresh, you'll see my access to the site has been blocked. And so that's a pretty common thing people tell us. There's a set of sites they're happy to have on untrusted devices if they're not confidential, another half that another set.
You saw that even while the session was basically active, you just had to refresh
and
permissions
then
went
turn
away.
out. That was what an administrator would do to apply one of these labels to a site, and sometimes admins do that. But we hear a lot of admins want to enable users to create and collaborate on their own because they don't want to be a bottleneck to that activity. So this is the site creation experience in SharePoint. And right within this UI, we now include the sensitivity as part of site creation. So I could type general, and of course, then the privacy settings are public. And if I switch to top secret, I can't set the privacy settings. It's private. That's overridden. So I don't, as a user, have to think about all these choices and policies. I just know this is top secret.
Okay, so then on the Office client side, you can do some of these labels as well, right? It's now native inside of Office 365 Pro Plus, this control for sensitivity.
That's right. The same idea of grouping a set of policies in labels that make sense for your business, we bring to documents, not just sites and groups. And so I'll click on sensitivity, pick top secret, and sure enough, you can see that is watermarked, Contoso only, and top secret is put as a header at the top of the document.
Very cool. So security then spans your sites, your files, and even the endpoints there. Great tour of all the significant updates to SharePoint and OneDrive and even Office Client as we see here. But what's next?
Yeah, there's a lot more we're working on. We want to make collaboration, as we showed, between Office and OneDrive more seamless. We're going to do more integration with Teams, more extensibility. We didn't get a chance to talk about Power Apps and Flow and SharePoint Framework. We want to make gorgeous intranets that are really engaging with stream video and Yammer, far easier than ever, both on the PC and web and on the phone. So we've got a lot to do.
Very cool. And if you're just getting started, maybe you're coming from SharePoint on premises, where would I learn more about all the updates?
Yeah, I think you've conveniently helped us put the URL up. Yesterday we did a master blog that I think pointed to 10 child blogs of all the news for the different scenarios. And so please check that out. Join the tech community for SharePoint. It's one of the most active communities out there for us. Give us feedback, ask us questions, and there's still several days in the event. Stop by our booth and say hello.
Right, and of course we'll continue to follow the updates for SharePoint and OneDrive. That's all the time we have for today's show. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
Thank you very much.